You can ask him later, okay? Or you can also ask King Huat as well, right? Hey, King Huat. Okay? And he has a 10-year-old son. Okay? He is also the captain of the Singapore Medical Association team. Okay? And I saw him play the other day, and wow, he's very skillful and very fast and very fit. Okay? And he likes to play golf as well. So since he's there on the phone, okay. So, without further ado, we have currently now, okay, is the founder and CEO of the Fullerton Healthcare Group Private Limited. Dr. Fullerton.
Hi, very good afternoon to all of you. I'm honored and grateful to be invited here. I know why Chuan invited me here. He probably wants me to tell a few stories and inspire all of you, but maybe I'll start with something funny. It is a doctor's joke. One of our patients actually turned up at our clinic, about not too long ago. He's a 60-year-old gentleman, retiring manager of an oil and gas company, and he went to see a doctor because he wasn't feeling quite up to par. His health wasn't in the best of shape. He was feeling tired, down. So our doctor gave him some advice, and the doctor saw him a week later in Botanic Gardens, walking with a hot China Xiao Mei, and he was smiling ear to ear, as happy as can be. So the doctor said, "Wow, you sure are looking good and feeling really great now, right?" Then he said, "What have you done?" Then the patient said, "Well, doctor, I'm just taking your advice. You said, get a hot mama and be cheerful." And the doctor said, "No, that's not what I said. I said you got a hard murmur, be careful." So the moral of the story is that it's important to listen, and if people tell you rubbish, then it's best to delete it and listen to the right stuff. Alright, so anyway, today Chuan wanted me to come and talk to all of you, and I do know some of you from my interactions with the Great Eastern people. I do admire many of you because many of you are insurance agents, am I right? So a lot of you are self-employed, am I correct?
Yes.
You all don't get a 4D windfall on the 27th of every month. You don't, right? A lot of it depends on your own efforts. And I'm a businessman now, so for me, I'm in the same predicament as all of you. So I don't get a windfall. For us, we must succeed. Otherwise, there's no money for family at the end of the day. And that's the practical reality of who we are. So today, I've been asked to talk on a topic, which is, let me just take this, and I've got a phone at the same time. I was asked to share with you how I got out of my comfort zone. I was living a very comfortable existence in my previous life, climbing the corporate ladder, being very successful even at a very young age, and how I got out of that comfort zone and chose to become my own business owner, running Fullerton Healthcare Group. And the other thing is challenges faced in setting up and running against the big boys. The big boys are usually the established competitors in the marketplace. So today I only have a few slides for you all, but from those slides there will be two stories to tell you, and from those two stories you will probably figure out what is important from my experience. Okay, why did I get out of my comfort zone? It's very simple. A lot of you who chose to be self-employed have probably gone through this process. You have probably done your own cost-benefit analysis. You probably asked yourself, do I want to be an employee, collect a monthly wage, or do I want to make something out of my own life, have more autonomy, and perhaps increase my earnings in the long run? And that was the same process that I went through. In my previous life, it was a very different experience for me. I started as a medical doctor. I was actually quite a good general practitioner, even when I was working in neighborhood clinics at night, I knew that I could open my own clinic with my wife. I married my classmate, and we could be very successful GP in the neighborhood, but I chose not to do that because I wanted some work-life balance, to be honest with you. So anyway, I started out as a GP, and then I joined Parkway Healthcare, which runs 3 hospitals, private hospitals in Singapore, as well as an established GP chain. I was very fortunate. I had good mentors, same as many of you have here within this agency. I had good mentors who taught me about corporate life, about how to do corporate sales. And then I found that because they liked me a lot, because I probably had the right attitude, I went the extra mile for them, customers. That's his opinion. And so I was able to service the customers more effectively than many of the other doctors or many of the other customer service managers. And so a lot of the existing customers liked me, and they kept asking for me, and I was able to get new contracts which range in the 6 figures to 7 figure sums. A lot of my clients back then included large global companies like SIA. I was actually the medical advisor for them, as well as for Hong Kong Shanghai Bank. And so I was promoted very quickly throughout the ranks. However, there came a point when I was quite senior. In fact, I was the youngest hospital CEO in probably the whole of Singapore history itself. I took over one of the private hospitals under Parkway when I was only 35 years old. That was considered very young. And so I had already broken many records at my time. I'd done many firsts. In fact, during my time, I grew the business for one of the divisions in my previous company from 40 million to 110 million within a space of 5 years. That is quite a phenomenal leap if you think about that in terms of revenue. So those were interesting times, but there came a point in my life when I felt that I was earning money for other people, and I wanted to make money for myself. And as part of a person within a corporate structure, there was a lot of red tape that I could not break through, and sometimes it's very apparent that customers need certain solutions, but the corporate management and administration was not willing to yield on that because of bureaucracy, red tape, etc. So I felt that I could build a company that could deliver a much superior value healthcare proposition to our customers. And that was part of the reason why I came out. And so one of the things that I did, obviously, was that, obviously, as all very pragmatic Singaporeans, we don't just have a dream and then go out and achieve our dream, right? Most of us would talk to a sounding board, right? Most of you would talk to maybe your spouse. Most of you would talk to good friends. So that's what I did. But my wife didn't understand. So my wife said, "Hey, you're having a very good life, in your organization. What do you bother? Your next career path, I was going to be promoted. I was going to run the whole of Malaysia, all the hospitals. They were going to send me up there, put me in an apartment with a driver, and have a nice posting, and then come back later, maybe one day be the king of Singapore and the king of the organization." But so my wife didn't understand. So I had to talk to friends who really cared. And for me, I go to church, and so I spoke to a lot of good friends in church who had no hidden agenda. These friends, true friends, are people who are there for you when you're down. They're there for you when, and they've got no agenda. They're not trying to sell you a product. They're not trying to push you something. They care for you. They listen to you, and they give you a very good, sensible advice. And I did speak to a lot of my church friends. I spoke to a pastor. Actually spent a bit of time taking some time out. I think men, we need to go to our Santong, so I went to the beach often just to meditate, just to think about it. And so the decision-making process was a very rational, structured, and very systematic one, which actually I want to encourage all of you. And even through the whole process, I was very rational about it. In fact, one of my friends was very good. She's a GM of a French company, and she's the top salesperson for the whole of Southeast Asia for the last 5 years. and she will always exceed her sales quota. You know, and it was phenomenal. When I look at her, I interact with her on a fortnightly basis. She's a 49-year-old lady with an 18-year-old kid, you know, and she had built a company, sold a company, and now she's the GM of this French company. She did give me very good advice, which I think you all should consider. One of the things that she told me is that, Mike, it's okay, you know, you can write down the criteria that's important for you, and you can even assign a weightage to it. You know, if let's say there are 5 factors in the decision-making process, not all 5 factors carry the same weightage, right? For example, financial earnings could be weightage 5 out of 5. Family satisfaction, you could assign it a weightage of 4 or 5, because that career path that you choose may take away so much time from your family that, you know, you find that you've traded off something in return. You know, you may lose your marriage and it's not worth it, you may lose your kids, it's not worth it. So I had, in fact, I wrote down 10 criteria. And at that point in time, about 2.5 years ago, I had 3 options before me. And whatever I share stays within this room, alright, because it's obviously P&C. I had an option to start this business that was funded by private equity money. So essentially, I had to put in my own money as well as funding from big financial sponsors. And so that was one option on the table. The other option was obviously in my previous company, they offered to promote me and become the king of Malaysia, you know, in terms of hospitals. So that was a nice option. But that option meant that I had to trade off my family. Because either my family moves out there with me, or I'll be on the aeroplane twice a week. Go up on Monday, come back on Thursdays and Fridays. There'll be some trade-off there. And there was another option. The chairman of a public listed company in Singapore actually approached me to be the CEO with significant stock options as well thrown in. So that was the third option that was on the table. And I remembered I wrote down the 10 criteria, and then you have the 3 options, right? Like 3, option A, B, C, right? Then you put a tick on those boxes whether you fulfill the criteria. And so from a rational decision-making point of view, option A was the most sensible. It fulfilled actually very nicely 10 out of 10 boxes ticked off. Option B maybe 6 out of 10. Option B was more like 4 out of 10, and option C was more like 6 out of 10. So in a sense, rational-wise was a no-brainer. But I think all of you would know that when you're about to make a decision and you're about to step into the unknown, when you step into the uncertain, especially for a person like me who has been very comfortable in my previous organization for a while. I spent about a good 8-9 years of my life down there. I was very grateful for what they had given me. They had mentored me, they liked me, they had positioned me for greater things. It was like jumping into the abyss, into the unknown. And so there was a fear factor. And so at that point in time, I needed it. And I share this with you all, and I encourage you all to do it, because all of us are generally spiritual beings. So no matter what faith you are, for me, I'm a Christian, but whatever faith you are, I encourage you to tap into a spiritual source to seek guidance, because at the end of the day, the peace of mind and peace of heart is very important in guiding your decision-making process. So I think you know that Lee Kuan Yew, our senior minister, our ex-minister mentor, if you read into the annals of history, he himself has seeked spiritual sifu to guide him when he came to making certain key decisions for Singapore, be able to position the CBD at the Dragon's Mouth, etc. So these things do play a part. For me, what I did was, obviously I spoke to a master, and he was very good. He did pray, and he did give me guidance. And so with that, when I had the conviction and the peace of mind, I attended very happily on 1st of October 2010, much to the consternation of my bosses in my previous organization. So why did I step out of my comfort zone? Because I felt that I could achieve a lot more with what I was doing, and it was a rational decision-making process. And I would encourage all of you to make sure that you have peace of heart and peace of mind to do whatever you need to do. Alright. Which comes to something that I want to show you. Which is, let me just play this slide. Okay. I know it's not very clear, but I'll give a prize to the person who can guess what this image depicts. Any guesses? What? That's right. He's very smart. Okay. Okay, so he's gotten it right. So do you know who did this? This was put in there in case you all didn't know what the first image was. Alright? This is the same image, alright? One of the things that I want to encourage all of you to do as fun, and you know your seniors will encourage you, is continuous improvement, lifelong continuous improvement. And one of the ways you can improve yourself is to continuously read. Don't become a junkie. You know, even at my age, I'm still learning. I admire Chuan at his age for having a Facebook account. My Facebook account is dormant, but I'm still learning. And one of the things I encourage you all to do is to read. There are two books which, in my humble opinion, I strongly recommend you should read. One is the Bible, because it has lots of interesting stories in it, and it's not just about 10 commandments. There are lots of life stories in it that you can learn, powerful lessons you can learn, take to your life. The other one is actually Romance of the Three Kingdoms. How many of you have read Romance of the Three Kingdoms? Don't be shy, just put up your hands. Okay, so there's quite a few hands. Those of you who haven't read, I would encourage you to go and read it. There is an English version of it, just in English. In fact, if you do a Wikipedia search, they say that one of the most read books in the world, besides the Bible and the Quran, is actually the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Actually, they have many movies on it. Yeah, they have many movies on it. So, but I will encourage you to read the book, because the book has a lot more. It's a lot more flavor in it. You know? And one of the things that I just want to ask you is that one of the most critical points in the story was actually the Battle of the Red Cliffs, when Cao Cao, with his vast army of 500,000 soldiers, purported 800,000 soldiers, decided to invade the southern lands of Wu, you know, and they only had like 5% of that army force compared to Cao Cao. But who won? The Wu Kingdom won, right? Together with Liu Bei's forces. And what was a critical success factor? We call it CSF in MBA talk today. What was the CSF for the Battle of Chi Pi? That's right. It's a Dong Feng, which is a southeasterly wind, right? Did the southeasterly wind happen at that time of the year in China, in that place? No, that's right. It doesn't. You know, and that's actually one of the things that I wanted to let you all know, because a southeasterly wind at that point in time was not possible. And it was because of that reason that the general that was in charge of the Wu forces, he suffered from anxiety and depression. Remember? He had severe anxiety and depression because all their plans was predicated upon a southeasterly wind. If there was no southeasterly wind, their tactics to tie the boats together and launch a fire assault aided by the wind would not have succeeded. And my point actually today is that, you know, as smart as all of us Singaporeans believe we are, and as smart as we would like to believe we are with our education, etc., one of the things that, again, was very important for my success was that we all need divine help. You know, as smart as we may be, and I think our Minister Mentor Lee Kuan Yew recognizes that, and I certainly recognize that. Without divine help, success would not be possible. And that was the case actually for as well. So I think that's the point that I just wanted to illustrate by showing you this slide. Now coming on to the other topic, which is that how do we fight against the big boys, right? Which then I want to show you a few other pictures. What's this? What is Goliath's height here? 9 foot tall, very good. How much is 9 foot tall in today's world? Six foot is about close to 6 foot is close to 1.8 to 1.9, right? So he's about 2 point. And how old was David when he fought Goliath? Does anybody know? Please. Okay, anyway, Hebrew scholars have purported that David was probably between 17 years old to 22 years old. Okay. Goliath was a giant. Giants didn't exist in those days. They were much taller than your tallest NBA basketball player. Alright. Goliath was a man of war. He was the champion of the Philistine army. And this image is actually very beautiful. You can find it on Wikipedia. It's actually painted by Schindler, Omar Schindler, unrelated to Schindler's List. It's unrelated, but it is a beautiful painting because it shows you it is historically accurate. Goliath is that tall. Look at this arrogance. How he laughed and he called David a dog. And do you notice that he's got a giant shield there? The size of his shield is probably the size of some of you in this room. And do you know that he has a shield bearer? Can you see this shield bearer? This is historically accurate. In those times, the champions had a shield bearer that would bear the shield for them. And who is this? The entire Philistine army mocking David. And for many days, the entire Philistine army was at the valley of Elah, which is a real place in Israel, and I've been there before. You can see that this is a valley. There's a brook here. Alright? And I've been to that place. The pebbles are still there today. You can pick them. They're very smooth. And this is the entire Philistine army encamped against the Israeli army. King Saul, the king of the Israeli army, did not dare to fight them. The entire Israeli army was cowering in fear. And this is all David had. Did he have an armor bearer? Was he clothed in armor? What did he have? This is a slingshot, right? And all of you know the story. I don't need to tell you what happened. He took out a few pebbles and he knew where he was aiming. It wasn't by chance, hole in one ball. It wasn't a fluke shot. He knew what he was doing. But what gave David the courage to go up against Goliath? Belief, yes? Belief. What did he believe? He believed he could win, right? He wasn't listening to the noises, right? What were the noises around him? They were mocking him, right? They said, hey, you're a small boy, Small boy, don't come and talk to me. Sounds familiar, right? You face that, right? In your daily sales, right? Hey, small girl, don't come and talk to me. You know what I mean, right? I've eaten more salt than you've eaten rice. Sounds familiar, right? What other noises did David hear? He heard disparaging remarks. It's recorded in the Bible. You can go read it. It's a beautiful story. It's very well written in there. There's a lot of human elements in there. Probably more than the Taiwanese soap opera. No, I'm not kidding. It's all in there. And you read it, you must let your imagination come alive when you read it. You know, there's a lot of flavor in it. His own brothers. What was he doing there in the first place? He was delivering lunch. He was sent there by accident. His father said, "Hey, the older brothers they are, recruited into the army. Why don't you go and send them some lunch and find out for them whether they're doing all right?" So when he delivered lunch, he found out the situation, and then he said there was a courage that rose up within him, right? This is the same courage that we all get, which is why all of you are in this room. It's the same courage that you all said, I'm going to take the road less traveled. I'm not going to just join a bank and be a bank employee. I'm not just going to join any other ABC company and just be an employee, right? The same voice that you all heard in there says that, hey, for the sake of the country, in this case, David was obviously a patriotic guy. He said, why should we be bullied? And obviously he had aspirations. But he was a smart guy. What did he ask before he went to fight the giant? He negotiated with the king. What did he ask from the king? He asked them, what's the spoils, what's the reward for the fellow who slays the Philistine? Right? So he knew how to negotiate. Right? And that's very important, isn't it? So you need to negotiate that, And what else was interesting was that his own brothers made fun of him. It's recorded in that his own brothers made fun of him. His brothers said, David, you are a troublemaker. You should just go back to the sheep where you are tending and don't be a yaya papaya and try to show us that you can do something. That's basically what they told him. Even his own brothers didn't believe in him. And that's what you will probably face in your lifetime, when you want to do something different, when you want to step out of your comfort zone, when you're up against the big boys, people will tell you, no, it cannot be done. No, it cannot be done. 1,000 times they tell you, no, it cannot be done. Because it's been tried before and 100 others before you have failed, it cannot be done. And that's basically what everybody told David. But David, I can tell you, won because he had an unshakable belief that he could win. And obviously he felt that very strongly that God was on his side and that God was going to deliver the giant into his hands. And so, but there's something that you need to know. And this is important for all of you to realize, is that before David met Goliath in his life, what was he doing before that, many years before that? Yeah, he was a shepherd, right? But what does a shepherd do? Can you just but is it as simple as taking care of sheep? If you go to New Zealand or Australia, right, even you know that in the traditional times, the shepherd's responsibility is not just to make sure the sheep get fed, make sure they don't fall off a cliff, make sure they get rounded up nicely by the end of the day. The shepherd also had to take care of the sheep because there would always be wolves, there would be lions, and there would be enemies that would try to prey on the sheep. And it's clearly recorded in there that part of David's training was that he had to fight the lion and the bear when he was defending the sheep. If you had to fight the lion and the bear, wouldn't you consider that very good training? It equips you, right? And so that comes back to something that I just wanted to encourage all of you with regards to continuous improvement, is that you never know that whatever skill that you're learning today, be it if you decide to go for a course on management, or you decide to enroll yourself for a public speaking course, or you decide to enroll yourself for Dale Carnegie's How to Make Friends and Influence People. Have you attended the course? None of you have attended the course. I sent my staff for that training. You know, so whatever skills that you equip yourself, don't be surprised that one day that skill will come in very handy when you're negotiating the multi-million-dollar deal. Because you never know when it will come in. And so it was the case for David. So when David had to fight Goliath, he was not fearful because not only did he know that God was with him, but the other thing that was very important was that he had already fought similar giants. Fighting a lion and a bear is no mean feat. So he was already prepared. So this is a very, very powerful story, which is why I want to encourage all of you to read those two books that I purported, because they're very, very useful. This modern day illustration, Goliath looks like he's wearing Manchester United jersey. Life is great jersey, you know. There's a modern version, you know. So after David struck him with precision. You know, it wasn't like a fluke shot, you know. It was not a fluke shot, I can tell you that. When he chose the pebbles, and if you go to Israel, you talk to the Israeli tourist guide, they will tell you that the marbles are smooth. It's deliberately chosen because the smooth pebbles can pierce through the flesh. It is as deadly as a bullet. You know, so he basically had a revolver in his hand. He knew what he was doing. So he could shoot the giant from afar without even getting near him. And he went for the most vulnerable point in the skull, not the eyeball, but he went for the temple. He went for the temple, so basically he gave the giant a stroke. The bullet went through, the pebble went through the temple, lodged into the brain, and obviously immediately he had a brain hemorrhage on the spot. The giant collapsed, and instead of celebrating like most Taiwanese serials will show you, or the Indian movies will show you, Bollywood movies will show you, he did the sensible thing. What did he do? He cut off his head, you know, cut off his head, and he displayed it, you know, for everyone to see. So the point I'm trying to share with all of you is that, you know, in the corporate world of today, whether you're running your own business or whether you are self-employed, Davids do beat Goliath. And to quote Richard Branson, and you can read about what Richard Branson has said. Sir Richard Branson is a famous, successful entrepreneur in today's world, who hails from the United Kingdom. When he first started, he was nobody. In fact, he was living off the streets at one point, you know, and it's a very well-known fact. But he was very good at starting with very small companies and making those companies succeed versus the bigger players in the marketplace. And one of the things that he has said about smaller players, and David represents all of us, the underdogs, the smaller players in life. And one of the strengths that the smaller players have is that because we're smaller, we're more nimble. We move faster. We're less bureaucratic. And as a result, we move faster, we are more responsive to customers' needs. We can tailor-make solutions to customers. And that is what we are doing right now, even in our business, which is why we're winning a lot of major contracts from the other players in the marketplace. I will share with you this privately. We just won a $50 million contract from one of the other major listed companies in Singapore. And when we won the contract, we were a bit shocked also, to be honest. We almost fell off, we fell out of our chair, because when we went for the tender, it was an invitation tender. There was only 3 parties that were invited, ourselves plus 2 other listed players. There was a very tight relationship between the existing vendor, or the outgoing vendor, now that we won it, and this major company. This client is actually a multinational company that hails from Europe, and they had $50 million worth of business in Singapore alone, not to count the surrounding region. And when we went for the RFP, request for proposal, we went in, we gave it our best shot, but we didn't think we stand a chance, not because we don't provide good value, but we didn't think we stand much of a chance because this client was already very close. They had a very tight relationship with their existing vendor for the last 15 years. So in our opinion, our perspective, We didn't think we stand a chance because the relationship so tight already. Every day drink kopi together, go again, you know. And then we come in, we are outsider, right? But I remember when our team went for the presentation, we went through 3 rounds of grilling, including a teleconference with England, you know. And what we decided to focus was on our value proposition, our pure value proposition, and we just kept on emphasizing that. You know, and obviously at various points of the interview, the customer will try to make you feel small. It's a very common tactic. They always try to make you feel small. Just like your disparaging siblings, as David's siblings did to him, you know, your competitors will try to make you feel small. So they try to say, hey, you know, you're not as big as the other 2 players, tell us why we should do business with you, blah, 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 you know, sounds familiar. But I'll tell you something which I found is true in the end. When we focus on the value proposition, they found that our offer was too compelling to turn down because we solved all their problems in one fell swoop. We solved all their problems from beginning to the end. And we offered a very reasonable price. We still made money. It was a healthy profit margin, but we solved all the problems from the beginning. Whereas the other 2 players had a very arrogant attitude. They felt that, oh, I'm so and so. I've been here for 20 years, you know. I don't need to solve all your problems. I will only solve problems if the customer has 5 problems. This big player will say, I will solve 3 or 5 problems. The other 2 you can settle yourself. But because we were willing to solve all the problems, we met all the needs, you know, the customer at the end, they say, sensibly, rationally, we should actually go with Fullerton rather than the other 2 providers. And so we won. And what I heard from the grapevine is that when the customer went back to tell their incumbent, or rather their outgoing provider, they were going to terminate the relationship and give the business entirely to us, the outgoing supplier was too stunned. They had no response. You know, they had no response. And all they could say was, we don't accept it. Who cares whether they don't accept it? Because the customer is king, right? So the point which I'm trying to tell you is that even in today's corporate world, David's too big. As long as you meet your customers, we do win. And one of the things that I just want to encourage all of you is to be persistent. You know, don't give up. You know, one of the things that I did when I was running the hospital previously, I did run one of the 3 popular hospitals called East Shore Hospital, but I restructured it and renamed it. And one of the things that I did was that it was the smallest hospital. I chose that hospital because I thought that it was a chance for me to turn it around. I actually turned down the Grand Eagles job because I felt that it was really a 5-star hotel. There wasn't anything for me to prove down there. And I remember when I took on the job, someone told me, very, very jokingly, I remember someone told me when I first sat in the hospital CEO's position, one of the managers with good intentions, he came to tell me this, he said, hey Dr. Tan, I just want to let you know you're the 14th CEO in 12 years. 14 CEOs, they changed 14 CEOs in 12 years. They said, you know, ever since Changi General Hospital opened up in the East, our hospital business koyak already. You know? So when I first took over the hospital, I think if you all remember East Shore Hospital, right? It was quite run down. The painting looked like a factory painting, you know, looked like a very factory, you know, cannot make it, you know what I mean, right? And then I remember the first day I stepped into the place, even the word East Shore Hospital, the word A had already dropped off. And then I asked the plant manager, you know, facilities manager, you know, we paid him a decent manager salary. I said, hey, when can you get this fixed? He said, working on it, working on it. You know, he's working on it for 2 weeks until I had to really screw him upside down, you know what I mean, right? Just to get him to wake up his idea, you know. So, but one of the things that we did, and this is the illustration, being smaller does have its advantages, was because we could move a lot faster than the other 2 sister hospitals. So one of the things that we initiated was that we put in a lot of new initiatives where other hospitals had not done. So one of the things that I did was that I actually redeployed personnel. Many of you who have been to a hospital, either your wife has given birth or you've given birth in a hospital, you know that hospitals are not the most customer-friendly places, right? You know that if you ask for early discharge, the nurse will give you a blank look, you know, and then she says noted, but then the noted you still discharge at 3 p.m., you know what I mean, right? So even you ask for early discharge, it never happens, you know. So one of the things that I did was that we became more customer focused, and I got one of the staffs reassigned as a customer service ambassador. So her job every day was very simple. She would just walk around the hospital rounds, and all she had to do was just ask every single patient, do you have any special needs for today? Can we take care of it? So it could be an early discharge or a special concern, and she would look into that, you know. And so that her job was separate from the nursing responsibilities. You know. Nurses are just there to make sure you get well, you get out of hospital, you know. And you ask them for anything more, they cannot make it. You know. So this is one of the things I did. The other stuff that I did was that I brought in free Wi-Fi into the hospitals. Previously, there wasn't any Wi-Fi in any of the 3 public hospitals. So a lot of the new initiatives that we rolled out, besides the renovation, straight away was very well received by the customers. Our service scores became very good. In fact, there was a Business Times hospital survey in 2010. And surprise, surprise, we actually rated out of 7 private hospitals in Singapore, we actually came in number 3. And that was quite an achievement, considering that there are so many other branded hospitals. And I remember before that we were probably ranked last, you know what I mean, right? So from last to jump to third was a very remarkable jump in performance. And so obviously the hospital business improved, you know, and that's what we did down there. And that's why small is beautiful, because the advantages of being small is that there's less bureaucracy, decision making is faster. You are empowered, and especially for many of you who are self-employed, there are many things that you can do for your customers that a lot of big corporations cannot be able to do. You know, and you all have very supportive seniors